Hola, mi gente. This is Jackie Nuñez for Latin Waves. Today we have a special guest, and you know how much I love music. We have a bass player. His name is Alfredo Lopez, and he's currently touring with Frankie Valli, one of my favorites too. So I want to say thank you to Alfredo for joining us today on the show. I'm glad to have you. Welcome. Welcome,
Hi,
Alfredo.
Jackie. Uh, I was enjoying the intro music. I was like, yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of danceable, right?
yeah, yeah. Thank you for having me on your Latin Waves
Thank
with
you.
Jack Nunez show, and
I
yeah,
sometimes think I'm going to rename it Jackie Nunez and Anna because she's the bomb. She's the one who brought that whole introduction in the beginning there. So I'm grateful to her for that. And she's probably saying right now, no pa tanto.
no pa tanto.
Yeah, no pa tanto. So once again, welcome. I understand
Thank
you
you.
come from a musical family, that you involved in the music from a very young age. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I started playing violin. I actually didn't want to. My parents kind of like forced me, and I think every parent forces their kid to start playing violin. When they're 4 or 5 years old, and then for I want to say until probably like 12 years old, I was into sports, nothing but sports. I played, a little bit of baseball, um, basketball. Didn't have the height for it, but mainly did baseball. And then I think it was at age 12 where I really started. I wanted to play the drums, really wanted to play the drums, but my dad is a musician, and he had a bass laying around. And then most of us, or a lot of people, get started in the church, and that was kind of like my introduction. My uncle's church needed a bass player, and that was it. Like, I just didn't do anything but playing bass from then on, and I'm still doing it, thank God. And now I you know make a living out of it, so it's definitely a blessing, because I've traveled, many places, and I just by playing this instrument, beautiful instrument. um I've been fortunate enough to see a lot of places and meet a lot of wonderful people around the world.
I see you definitely get around. You play the upright as well, right?
I do, yes. Yeah.
Now, is there a major difference between obviously the upright and are there any challenges with playing either one or the other?
Yeah, they're the upright. I always say, ironically, it's worse than a jealous girlfriend, because if I'm if or a boyfriend, whatever, if you're not constantly uh you know playing it, it'll kick your butt. More on the physical side, because it's a bigger instrument. You need to be constant, uh you know practicing, and also because there's no frets, as opposed to an electric bass or electric guitar, where it has like those metal bars where where you make the chords and all that.
Hmm.
So this is everything is muscle memory. So if you're not on it every day, it'll kick your butt from behind, and tell you got to practice every day.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, one of my favorite bass players was like Cachao, the Cuban
Oh, of
bassist.
course.
And then, of course, there's many others, but even the Venezolano, the Oscar de Leon,
Hmm.
would dance with the bass, like with the
Yeah.
upright. I mean, that had to be hard to do. Don't you think that had to be hard? Because he's not staying still. He's trying to play as
Yeah, and
as he's dancing.
I share the last name with Cachao Lopez.
Cachao
Great,
Lopez, that's
yeah,
right, that's right.
great
One of the
inspiration for
greats.
me. Yeah, great inspiration for me. And yeah, definitely, you're right. It's hard enough to play. Imagine, now getting your moves. And I think, for those kind of guys, it runs so in the blood that it just becomes natural to them. I couldn't do it. I come from Chile, South America, and
Right.
even though we love salsa down there, it's not quite the same.
Right. They have their own typical music, right? Did you
Yeah.
start with that, or was it by choice not to?
No, I think it's kind of sad to say that in Chile, at least, our folk music only gets played once a year, and that's in the Independence Day.
Right.
And they do teach it. I do know how to play it, but it's
So why do you suppose that happens? Is it because
I-
the newer generation are just gearing away from the typical music? Isn't that still part of your culture?
yeah, I think what happens is that um it's not like, as opposed to like cumbia and salsa, it's a little bit, it takes a special dance,
Right.
it takes knowing, as opposed to the other, cumbias, at least you can start moving back and forth or going side to
So do
side.
you think they don't do it because lack of knowledge, or they're just afraid to go there because too many people don't really know about it?
That's a great question. I think it's many reasons. It might not be hip. Maybe if you don't know how to dance it, you're like, well, what's the point? They do teach it in schools. I did learn, some folk music in schools, but again, it gets overpowered by cumbias and salsas all the time. But it's everybody loves it still. But it's one of those things where, like, okay, we had one or two songs, let's move on to the good stuff.
Now, you was in a show called or the house band for Nos Cayó la Noche, right?
Yes.
And how was that experience for you?
Well, it's very different from doing live stuff. In a TV show, you're very limited. You got to be very on your toes, because many things can happen. To the guest could be like, well, you guys, let's play this song. And you got to be with your ears open more than anything, because most part, I gotta say that in the Latin community, or the Latin, uh, they do things different, a little bit outside of, maybe, as if, like, from what I've talked to guys that play like on Jimmy Kimmel or the other shows, everything's kind of scripted. Here in the Latin world, it's anything can happen at any given
So
time.
they're very, very much into improvisation,
Oh yes, everything. Yeah,
which
everything.
is kind of like our music, mucho improvisando, as they
Yeah,
say. Spanish music, they do a lot of improvisation, kind of like jazz,
right,
where they
right.
do the improvisation.
Yeah, you're
But
right.
um, tonight, como tú, tonight, right?
Yeah, tonight,
Tonight, like you,
tonight. Yeah,
tonight.
yeah.
How was that experience with Omar Chaparro?
Yeah, I gotta say, I love both of those guys, Alex and Omar. I think we got to do it more with Omar Chaparro, because his show is still on, and he's just a character. He's a wonderful person, a great actor, great comedian, and he loves to sing as well. He has his own music out, and his show was more hands on with us. Um, and at any given time, he would make not only singers but actors sing, or and he would do more games with where music was involved. So that was a great challenge. Like I told you before, it's one of those things where your ears have to be like triple the size, because he can throw you a song that I've never heard, you never heard, but you have to follow the singer. And
Right.
so that show has been has had a big success here in the US. He's like I said, he's uh very recognized actor and comedian, and loved by many.
Now, have you ever played with a band and you know they could be off key? How do you handle that? Because you're the base, which you're the kind of the foundation of the song itself. They have to follow you, no?
You mean when there's a singer off key?
Yes.
That's a tough one. There's there's not much you can do there. You just kind of have
Or
to.
the timing is off. I mean, I've seen that happen where
Yeah,
their
yeah.
timing is totally off, and you're like, okay, do you slow down? Do you get faster? What do you do?
Ah, man, I've been in situations like that, and I think at that point it's better just to lay off, and usually like the guitar player or the piano player will just continue on their own, following the singers. It's which there's not much you can do there. When if the key is off, well, that you can work with that, but when the timing's off, yeah, it's very hard. It's better just everybody just to lay off, and one you know it only takes one just to like kind of keep following that situation.
Have you ever played with a band? And I've heard this stated a lot. Uh, the percussion cruzado. So you're trying to follow the percussion or them follow you, but you're both on two different, wavelengths. Like you're here and he's over there, and you start to sound like you're all over the place. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that actually happened not too long ago. And especially in the salsa world, como tú sabes bien, there's a clave,
Right.
and so
Which is the backbone of the music.
the backbone of the music. So if a conguero or timbalero is crossed with the clave, oh boy.
How
Um,
did you deal with that? How do you deal with that when you're totally off now? Aren't you confused?
Yeah, yeah. It happened. Like I said, it happened to me not too long ago. This person came in and had the clave all crossed, and it was just it was really hard. It's really hard. You try to do your best, and I think at this point, I can go with it. I can fix it, or just fight it through. At that point. Um,
Have you ever spoken up against it if that was the case?
I haven't. Um, yeah, that's a good. I haven't because it's kind of telling them like go back and like I remember when I first started playing Cuban music back in when I was 16. I remember I didn't know anything about it, and this Cuban guy came to Chile and he was like, "Chico, tú tienes que comer pan con clave,"
That's
meaning that
right.
you gotta like learn this stuff. Uh,
Right. The was it the dos tres and the tres dos clave, right? 2 3 and 3
Yeah,
2.
yeah. So at that point, I was like, you're right, completely. But if you're telling that to somebody old and grown, and maybe they'll take it as an offensive. Who knows? But I haven't personally said anything, which in many cases I wanted to, but and it doesn't happen very often.
Right.
But especially when people are like trying barely getting into this, and it's normal, but when you're in a professional setting, it's kind of like assuming that you should know this basic stuff.
Right. Are you an arranger yourself?
I've done arrangement, and it's hard, and I think I'm gonna take an arrangement MD position in a in a new project that we're working on.
Hmm.
So I can't really talk about it right now, but yeah, it's a whole different challenge, whole different world. You kind of have to be a master of all the instruments, when making the arrangements, and making sure you're not stepping on anybody's toes, or you're not
Right.
giving somebody else more
You
than what you
basically
should.
have to know those instruments well enough that when you're doing that arrangement, it's true to the sound, it's true to the song,
Yes,
correct?
absolutely right. Yeah. And also,
Especially in the chord progressions.
yeah, and also knowing the music very well, and so it's a challenge. It's a big challenge of its own. definitely.
I can imagine. Now, you went to the Conservatory of Music in where is it? In Chile,
And Chile, in Valparaiso, Chile. Yes.
Valparaíso. Okay. Tell me that experience. You learned jazz over there?
Yeah, first I went to that's where I actually I've studied more upright than I have electric bass because I did a classical there.
Hmm.
And I wanted to get into jazz, and my teacher was like, "Nope, you're going to learn with the bow, you're going to learn classical music because that's you're going to get, you're going to fine tune yourself with that."
Because
So that's what I did.
classical music is basically the foundation for everything, isn't it?
I definitely agree with that. Yeah. So I started playing in youth orchestras. I did that for like maybe 4 years. And then in between I was, learning how to play jazz on the upright, but my main thing was classical music. And yeah, so that's where it all began, and I got my foundation. And I would recommend any parent out there, if you want to, you think your kid has or wants to learn how to play music, to put them in a music school or conservatory from a young age, because they'll learn faster.
Now, wouldn't you say any regret having classical experience? Wouldn't you say now that you've been there, done that? Wouldn't you say that was the best thing that you did, even if you were learning the violin, as you say? Because, Sheila E. had that problem too. She started with the violin.
Hmm.
As great as a percussionist she is,
Yeah,
she
she's amazing.
started with the violin.
Yeah.
Don't you think, all in all, that still is a great, a great experience for you? Kind of give you a better understanding of the string instruments as well?
Yeah, it's yeah, definitely no regrets. I think it's one of those things where the violin, maybe it's not the most attractive to a kid, m- but it's definitely an important instrument. And oddly enough, a great percentage of Asians, they put their kids through classical music when they're young, and most of them are like doctors and scientists, very smart people. So it definitely opens up your mind, your
Right,
as
because
a kid.
wouldn't you say that that particular type of discipline actually makes you focus more? Till this day, I don't have an understanding why they've taken music programs out of the schools here, because it has been proven, as
Hmm.
you said with the Asians, that they put their kids into these musical programs because it disciplines them to become the doctors, the lawyers, and the professionals that they are. So, wouldn't you want to see more of that?
Yeah, that's definitely something that it's really, unfortunately, that they're taking that out, because it's, and for other reasons too. I agree with what you said, and also it keeps kids busy, maybe from doing other things that they're not supposed to, or just it keeps them concentrated, and it develops them in general, whether you want to do, whether you want them to do this for a profession or not.
Now, I'm going to ask you a real crucial question here.
Uh-oh.
How does Alfredo Lopez, starting out in a conservatory, jazz, Latin, end up in rock and roll with Frankie Valli?
Well, at this point, my career, I love challenges. Not only a situation, I do this for the money, but I also, I like I said, I love challenges. I love music. I'm a, music lover. And so when the opportunity came, I was like, definitely yes, because also Frankie's a legend. And who wouldn't want to be a part of a singer, especially a part of a band that that's backing up, a legend, around the world. And many times up to now, I told, when I had audition, I said, I play half of these songs in cover bands, in wedding bands. I can't take my eyes off of just like the number one. I play that, every weekend when I'm doing, you know, weddings and, oh, what a night. It's one of those songs where it's,
Did you ever anticipate this happening, that you got called, you auditioned for, Frankie Valli? Did you ever anticipate this happening?
I didn't, it was actually, it's funny. I had auditioned for him back in 2014. A friend of mine recommended me for the gig, and at that time I auditioned for him and nothing happened. And it's kind of it's a normal thing. Many times you audition for anything, and you get on standby, or you just, and it just took 7 years for me to get the call back. But it was interesting, and I was welcoming it like the first time I had auditioned. So um it's a surreal moment to be with him, at his 88 years young. And it's amazing how, his mind is so sharp. He remembers names. I'm horrible with names. And this guy, he memorizes every, person that he tells, stories about, their name, last names, or years. And
Wow.
so it's definitely a good example.
Now, out of all his songs, is there a favorite?
That's a good one. I think it's like having a kid. You just love them all.
You
And I
must have
wish
been
we played
talk.
more,
You
but
must have been talking to Ray Negron, huh?
he said the same thing.
Yes, he actually did. So that's funny. What what would you say that, I've asked this of many musicians, so I'm going to ask you too.
All right.
Why do you suppose that our music is so prevalent in other countries than it is here? And it's the music of here, especially rock and roll.
Well, I think it's because it's born here. I think it's innovating. People were innovating, from here to the rest of the world. Um, and so does, like rock bands from the UK. Those were, they were coming up with this style of music. Also, with the blues, it has to do with the, with all the background that it has,
Hmm.
and which it didn't happen anywhere else, maybe in South America. And it just became popularized. And I'll say this, back in, when rock and roll was coming up, like the 60s, uh from Mexico down South America, they were people were becoming famous just doing cover songs from the
Right.
US. They were translating them in Spanish, and
Yes, yes.
they were, they were coming up as, they were people being discovered not by their own music, by covering an English artist. So they're giving that value. I think, to me, it's something that it was born here, and from here to the rest of the world, and everybody takes it, and I think they accept it that way as well.
You're wearing a shirt called The Beatles. I'm going to tell you a funny story.
Uh,
Now, in 1964, when the Beatles came here, a lot of the doo-woppers and the early rock and roll and R&B artists were fearful that the Beatles would take over. They felt that some doo-woppers, what they call doo-wop today,
hmm
although it was the early rock and roll R&B, they feel that the Beatles came in and kind of killed the doo-wop. Meanwhile, when the Beatles came in, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons were number one on the Billboard charts. So, what do you think? Do you think that the Beatles would have killed doo-wop? Because I don't agree with that.
That's funny that you say, because they were talking about that a couple weeks ago, and they were saying, what, because at that time, um, at that time, like you said, doo they were, all singers, but by that time I think they were already kind of playing instruments. So maybe the Four Seasons were an inspiration to the Beatles to sing and play their own instruments, which we
Right.
will never know if that was true or not, but um
Well, the Beatles did cover a lot of the doo-wop songs,
yes.
but you would never really hear doo-wop cover the Beatles.
Yeah, I don't think I think it was just something for that era, and like anything else, it had to be to progress somehow. And
Right.
I think the Beatles were the ones that made the mark, or end of an era, maybe marked with their music and with their, because they're all talented. They were all talented.
Absolutely. What are your influences? And what musicians do you favor?
Well, like my background was more of a jazz. So definitely, jazz artists like McCoy Tyner, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, um, Bill Evans,
Mm.
Chick Corea, one of every and a lot of fusion. And I didn't really get into like the pop scene until I got here to the U.S. And because it's weird. And in Chile I was actually was able to play music, jazz only, and make a good living. But here it's all different. It's more like in the pop stuff. So I had to learn rock, rock en español, cumbias. Well, I knew cumbias, but and salsa, that was the other thing
Right.
that kind of I played around. But yeah, so definitely I was more of a jazz guy. And then here in the US I started learning more of the rock and roll culture.
Do you feel that the jazz helped you with rock and roll?
Yes, it definitely did.
Would you say the classical as well?
Yeah, I mean that was the foundation. And you can people say like Bach was a jazz himself. If you
Mm,
if you go, if you study his left hand, that was like a walking bass line, or at that time. So
that's right.
it definitely came from classical and blues. Also blues, I gotta recognize that blues opened many doors to many other genres today.
Now, going back to Frankie Valli, are there some major expectations from you? And are you living up to it?
Expectations, yeah. I mean, it's just surreal that I'm playing with a guy again, his age, and he still wants to do it. So it inspires me.
Right.
And you've been to our shows, and you know I I I don't take it for granted one bit, and I give it my 110%. Not only in playing wise, but also having fun and showing that dancing and singing. I know most of his songs, and that also helped me memorize the music faster. um and it's just something that I'm having fun with. I'm genuinely having fun with. I love it, and I'm gonna keep doing it until he wants to keep doing it. And then on to the next artist. But right now I'm having the time of my life. I'm traveling.
You can't say you know too many artists still at his age has the
No.
voice that he has.
Yeah, I think Tony Bennett is probably the other one. He's in
Right.
his 90s,
Yes,
and
yes.
despite having his physical challenges, that comes with age too. I Frankie still he drives. When we got rehearsal, he's the one driving himself.
Wow.
And he has a lot of energy for sure. He's
That's amazing.
yeah. And also like his brain is so sharp. And he makes us do different stuff. Gives his opinion about changing songs till this day. I mean, you've been playing those songs for more than 40 years, and still wants to make some better by doing this and that. So I give it to him. He's take my hat off to the guy. You know.
How's it working with El Maestro Robbie Robinson?
Oh, Robbie is just wonderful of a guy, sweetheart. Um, and it takes a special someone to be an MD for, especially for,
Right.
there's ten of us on stage, and we all have different characters, different um levels of intensity and whatnot, and so it takes a special person just to like calm things down when they have to be calmed down, or just know how to say things, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when you say things, maybe you can rub somebody the wrong way. So
Absolutely.
he's nothing been he's been nothing but good to me, and so it's mutual respect, and so yeah, sweetheart of a guy for sure.
Yes, and a great leader at that, right? Because
Yeah,
he's a
great.
great musical director. Well, I mean, he's obviously been with him for over 40 years, so that's
Yeah.
pretty amazing. Um, what do you think of the other musicians there? Because they're pretty outstanding musicians.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be in this band because also, it's everybody's so good. It just makes me want to be better. So, um, not only they play good, but they're it's a good vibe. It's a good vibe. That's also one of the things because you when you go into a band, that they have been playing for many years,
Right, you
maybe
got to have a good chemistry together, correct?
yeah, yeah. And me and Andy Sinisi, which is the drummer, we have a great chemistry. We get along well. It's just I'm enjoying it. Like I said, it's like a little family here.
Hmm.
Not only musical, but also we hang out. And on the tours we go out to eat and have a drink or two, and so it's not like once we're on stage, everybody else is on their own.
Right.
No, after the show, we're also hanging out with each other and laughing, and I'm sure nothing's perfect like anything in this world, but overall it's a great little community here, and we all love Frankie. We're backing him up. We try to do uh you know as much as we can do to carry this thing. I mean, he's people go out to see him, so we definitely back him up with the same energy.
Now, what kind of music have you not played that you would like to do?
I think certain styles of music, I'm okay listening to, because also it requires a lot of time and commitment. Um, I think I probably want. I've played, I think, most everything except probably like heavy metal, or that sort of you know end of the spectrum. Heavy metal or just progressive rock, and but
Right.
yeah, that stuff. I'm a lover of all music. I rather listen to that, and than wanting to do it and not do it good. Because every time I take any type of project, I like
Hmm.
to I like to be the best that I can be. So if it's not gonna be that, then I'm okay. I take a step back and respect the music that it's being played.
Now, what would you say to anyone that's looking to learn how to do the how to play the bass, or any instrument? Do you play the cello, by the way?
No,
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 just the bass, because a
just the
lot of people
bass.
that play the violin
Yeah,
also play the cello. So,
yeah.
um, is there any other instrument that you don't play that you would like to?
I think I play like the basic drums because I wanted to be a drummer. Like I said, drums, guitar, and piano. Those are kind of I can defend myself with those. I also had a music school a couple years ago, like for kids. So
Hmm.
that was another big challenge because it's dealing with kids. They have their own mind. Kids are so interesting. Um,
And don't, isn't it with the kids, they're a little hard at first to capture their
oh
attention for
yeah,
so long?
yeah, yeah, yeah. At first,
That was
yes,
quite a challenge, right?
very challenging, challenging. Uh, to know how to keep them focused. And but once they do, man, they go so by quick. That's why I'm saying, if parents, want to put their kids to music, do it as soon as they can, because once they latch onto it, it'll be, they'll learn really quick.
Have you had challenges where, or better yet, have you had a child prodigy?
No, I haven't seen. I've seen kids that are very talented, but I haven't seen like a prodigy, so to speak. Yeah.
That would be amazing, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I've
But
seen some child prodigies, and I have to say, I worked in a recording studio. I worked in two major recording studio
Mhm.
back in the 80s and 90s, when we were analog. And
That was the
I
best
used to
time.
get the
I
best
know.
time, right? I would get the studios. I knew who all the studio musicians were. I knew who read music. I knew who the arrangers were. So several times we would call these child prodigies. They would play, of course, the piano, or they would play, or they would sing, or they were just amazing.
Hmm.
Now, sometimes we found that the parent could end up hurting them more than they can help. What would you say to a parent who has a child prodigy or just a child that's very good without trying to be so controlling? Because sometimes they can actually ruin their career and not be a blessing to them. What advice would you give them?
I would have to say, just let them be a child. Um, and last week coming back, on the plane, I was watching that movie, King Richards, with Will Smith, and it actually reminded me a lot of now what you're saying is just, let them be a child first. Um, the kids that are really into it, the kids that are gonna go for it, they're gonna show interest. I had many parents, wanting to kind of get their money's worth. So they were kind of make the kid play every day, and at the end of, by the end of the month or X amount of time, they wouldn't want to do it anymore because they felt pressured, for whatever reason. The parents they felt like they needed to, to get their money's worth by making them play every day, and those kids get tired sometimes. So it's,
Right.
let them be. Don't force them. And even I'll go as far as, if they don't want to do it anymore, don't force them to go, because
Hmm.
you're wasting your money, you're wasting your time, and you're wasting also the teacher's time, because it's really hard um to get a kid playing music when they're being forced, so
Do
it's.
you think maybe because some parents just want them to live the life they didn't have?
I've seen that too. And again, it's like you just gotta let them be. They're not gonna live your wishes. So they have their own mind. They speak their own mind. And I did it for 2 years. I had the unfortunately I had to sell the business because I was getting so tied up with tours and other gigs that
Hmm.
that it was it just takes somebody to be there all the time.
I want to play one of your songs. Tell me about Alguna Vez.
So alguna vez, it's a cover song from a great band called Ketama. They're Spaniards. They mix kind of, it's a pop flamenco. So with this video that we did a couple years ago with friends of ours, we just wanted to kind of pay tribute to the band Ketama with, covering one of their songs. I'm a big flamenco lover as well, and that's another genre that's I'm getting into, and it's very complicated because the way that they count, the accents, it's not very, common to everybody else. um
It's
so
a
we just,
style within itself.
yo, yeah, yeah, the dancing and the palos and the palmas, and all that stuff. It's very, very, complicated, and it takes years to, be able to kind of play the basics of it. So we kind of kind of wanted to pay tribute to this wonderful band again named Ketama. Kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with Alejandro Sanz.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so they they kind of go in hand, Alejandro
Oh,
Sanz
okay.
and this band Ketama, which they're, they've been around for a while. They're legends.
So, Anna, let's play Alguna vez.
¿Quién te enseñó a atormentar así? Mala mujer, solo el dolor dejas en mí tu fría piel, ganar o perder. ¿Qué más me da si paso las noches en vela hasta el amanecer? Qué inútil es intentar olvidar las veces que he besado tu cuerpo, veneno que nunca se va. Si alguna vez me ves llorando, dile que la quiero, que estoy enamorado. Dile que no puedo olvidar el pasado. Si alguna vez tú me ves llorar, si alguna vez me ves llorando, dile que la quiero, que estoy enamorado. Dile que no puedo olvidar en la madrugada otra vez. ¿Quién te enseñó? ¿Quién te enseñó a amar y a odiar? No sé por qué perdí las ganas de vivir. ¿Por qué? Qué inútil es intentar olvidar las veces que he besado tu cuerpo, veneno que nunca se va. Si alguna vez me ves llorando, dile que la quiero, que estoy enamorado. Dile que no puedo olvidar el pasado. Si alguna vez tú me ves llorar, si alguna vez me ves llorando, dile que la quiero, que estoy enamorado. Dile que no puedo olvidar el pasado. Si alguna vez, herida que no cerró, no cura el tiempo ni olvido, las horas vacías dejaste en mi vida el dolor. Si alguna vez me ves llorando, dile que la quiero, que estoy enamorado. Dile que no puedo olvidar el pasado. Si alguna vez tú me ves llorar, si alguna vez me ves llorando, dile que la quiero, que estoy enamorado. Dile que no puedo olvidar el pasado. Si alguna vez me ves llorando, dile que la quiero, que estoy enamorado. Dile que no puedo olvidar el pasado.
Wow, that was amazing. There's
Thank you.
something so magical about flamenco. It's so, alongside with the percussion. I mean, it, I just love it. I've heard flamenco mixed in with salsa. It just makes the dance so much more motivating. How is it? I mean, you definitely got to get lost within that music, I'm sure.
No, and I'll say this. There's a great flamenco artist, a prodigy, one of the flamenco music called Diego Amador, and he did a version of La Sandunguita with Oscar de Leon. So
Oh,
it's kind
okay.
of like a salsa flamenco-ish. It's, people
Right.
can look it up on YouTube, and it's amazing. It's like whoa, you're like not expecting, especially yes, him.
Yes.
His vocal is so flamenco-ish. It's like he's it's hard to understand because I've met him. I had the opportunity of meeting him a couple years
Mm.
back in LA, and
Wow.
so but he's so like he's a prodigy. He's a prodigy of that music, and so he did a beautiful version of La Sandunguita. um sorry, yes, La Sandunguita, and with Oscar de Leon, and it's a pretty interesting combination of rhythms and styles.
Yes, it is. So I want to touch base on American Boy. Tell us about that.
So American Boy came about a couple years ago again. Wanting, I'm always looking to kind of do arrangements for certain songs on the bass, and um, I've done it with a couple several songs of Michael Jackson. So one day, I was just kind of noodling around with my bass, and I told this singer friend of mine, she's a wonderful singer, very talented person, and I said, "Hey, look, I have an arrangement of American Boy. Maybe would you be interested of helping me out, and let's do something together." And so we did it, um, and it kind of went viral on Facebook. Within 2 days, we had over 50,000 views, and
Wow.
yeah, so it was one of those things where like cool, we had fun, recording. We were never expecting it to go kind of viral, and it did at that moment. So um I'm always trying to see what I can put my give my input, and making something better, or just different, because it's
Right.
always like a guitar player with the vocalist, so, and so the bass is an instrument, it's everybody. For many years it was like the background, the what they call it, the men in black in the back, so to speak, in the shadows. But now it's we're it's being more recognized as a solo instrument.
Okay, so Anna, let's play American Boy.
Take me on a trip, I'd like to go someday. Take me to New York, I'd love to see LA. I really want to come dig it with you. You'll be my American boy. He said, hey sister, it's really, really nice to meet ya. I just met this 5'11" guy who's just my type. I like the way he's speaking, his confidence is speaking. Don't like his baggy jeans, but I'ma like what's underneath them. And no, I ain't been to MIA. I heard the Cali never rains and New York's on the way. First let's see the West End, I'll show you to my bedroom. I'm liking this American boy.
She's got some voice there. That's a great one.
Yes.
So tell me, what is it about, I mean, all these different styles of music that you're doing? How was your experience with Ana Barbara
Ana
and
Barbara, no,
Angelica Maria too, right?
yeah, I'm just blessed to be, to have the opportunities that I have, and her, every music that I kind of say yes to, I have to like, I don't want to go into something that just because of the money, or I gotta like it. I gotta like the rhythm. It's gotta make me dance. It's gotta make me wanting to do it, because that way I go into a project, happy, and uh
Of
and
course.
and and so with every experience that or have, with with her, and Angelica Vale and Angelica Maria, lovely ladies. um I just it's just fun.
They're like icons in the industry. They've been around a long time.
Yeah, and
That's actually a blessing to actually perform for them.
Yeah, and actually, Angelica Vale and Angelica Maria, big fans of Frankie, because
Really?
she covered a song. Angelica Vale covered a song from the movie Grease. One of the slow one from the beach scene. Um, and
Hmm.
uh, Frankie's famous song there, Grease. Written by
Greece.
the Bee Gees, and so the big fans. They're big fans of Frankie, and they were just you know, they're just lovely
It's
people,
pretty
and
interesting how our music, whether it's Latin or rock, they, for some reason, no matter what, co- combine itself, and it's just like what we say a sancocho, kind of a soup with everything in it.
yeah.
So I want to play one more song before we go.
Can
Tell me
I
about.
can I
Yeah.
interrupt you really quick? And I just want to say this, um, for the most part, playing with big artists sometimes it can be challenging because they're many times they're
Right.
they're diva ish, and it takes over them. But I gotta say, these people, Angelica Vale, Maria, Frankie, they're just the most loving human, normal people out there, and with all their success and could be divas, they just put that stuff aside and they're just normal people, like I was telling you
Hmm.
guys earlier. Frankie, after the sound checks or when we're at dinner, he stays and chats with us. He tells us stories,
Wow.
and just like something that you're like, he doesn't have to be sharing this, or he could just not even look at us. But I've heard from many of my friends that sometimes they don't want the artists don't doesn't even want the musicians to look at them in the eyes. So I'm like, you know
Wow.
so that fortunately, for my experience with most of the people that I play, have been really cool with the artist, the relationship artist and band. And you know they give us the props that that many times they don't. The musicians are kind of like they think they're
Right.
doing us a favor instead of working as a team. It's more like, no, I'm doing you a favor because I'm
Right.
hiring you. So I'm sorry, I
So
just wanted to
let's
put that out
let's go with Lovi. Tell me about Lovi.
there. Lovi this song I co-wrote this song.
Okay.
I besides playing Frankie and I'm a big rock en español fan. So this is an original band, and this is an original music, original song, sorry, that we wrote a couple years ago, and with the band called Duques. And we do a lot of rock en español, and rock en español is coming back. It's coming back.
Yes, it is big
And
time.
yeah, so we wrote this song, and besides doing covers, we also do originals, and this is one of the song that we did a couple years ago.
Okay, Anna, you can play it.
Llegaste justamente cuando menos lo esperaba, yo alegrándote la vida y tú acabando con la mía. Solamente unos segundos para ti bastaron, cuando menos lo esperaba. Tú partiste con mi alma y no es justo para ella, que dio la vida entera por entregarme todo su amor. Y no puedo ser aquel vestido de traición, decirle que encontré un nuevo amor. Solamente unos segundos para ti bastar, cuando menos lo esperaba. Partiste con mi alma y no es justo para ella que dio la vida entera por entregarme todo su amor. Y no puedo ser aquel vestido de traición, decirle que encontré. Lo vi, no lo vi, creí que no me pasaría y ahí me sorprendió la vida. Lo vi, no lo vi, ¿cómo le explico la razón? Lo que quiere el corazón, mi corazón.
Well, we're back because we're pretty much running out of time. I wanted to say thank
Oh,
you. Thank you for being on the show. I say you're a great musician. I wish you much luck and much continued success. I hope that you continue with Frankie. He is awesome. It must be such an honor to play for him.
it really is. Thank you for first of all, thank you for having me. I enjoy it. I know it went so quickly. I was like,
I
wow,
know.
it always goes quickly when you're having fun.
When you're having
Much
fun.
success to you as well with the whole production,
Yeah.
and uh, it's a blessing in disguise, and it's surreal
Yes, it is.
when playing with that guy. You
Well,
know,
once again, I want to thank you, and we have to do this again. Thank
yes,
you, Alfredo, and once again, much success and luck to you always. So this
thank you,
is
Jackie.
Jackie Nunez for Latin Waves.